Hey guys, I am super excited today because we've got a special guest. We've got Steve Rath, and he is an absolute superstar. Steve has just got this incredible background that we're going to really dive into about a little bit of a different background. He's been in the business a long time, but really a unique background, and I think it's really played well to his strengths. So, Steve, why don't you give us a quick little bio on yourself, what you did before real estate, and what prompted you to enter the business?
Well, I've been in the business for over 34 years now. So I got in it in '88 when the end of another really hot market and the beginning of the 1990 crash. So I've been through the ups and downs of real estate for a long time. And I began. I was I was in the Air Force. I was an engineer in the Air Force, but I always loved business. And I actually went to San Diego State for business, but then transitioned into the Air Force because of life circumstances. So I got into the business, and I did it like a lot of people do. I was doing it part-time. It was actually, I had a job that offered, I could manipulate my schedule so I could do both full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried that for a couple of years and just decided real estate is where I wanted to be, and went full force at it, and was surprisingly in the early 90s, kind of a tough market. I was very successful then. And then 8 years later, I got my broker's license and joined with some other partners and bought a business in Fair Oaks, California. And here I am today.
So that's really interesting. And I know you partnered with your wife, Chris, now, who's
Yes.
got an amazing background herself. But it's a really interesting dynamic because you don't see a lot of engineers who made a successful transition into the sales world. What's been kind of your strength? I mean, you're bringing some unique strengths to the market. Maybe that's your differentiation point. I don't know. How does that work out?
The funny thing is, engineer and real estate agents talk about it. If you're dealing with an engineer, because they're perfectionists. They want
Right.
details. They want to know A to B what you're going to do for them and how it's going to go. And so I have that in me, but I'm really I love people, and that really is my passion. So I like the engineer side of it, the mathematical and technical part of it, but I more like meeting people. So it's an odd mix for a salesperson to be an engineer.
Yeah.
But it does bring I have a kind of an organized chaos about me. I know exactly the steps I need to do things, and that's the engineering side. But the people person side is really who I am.
Nice. So this is interesting because I think there's a lot of parallels, especially for our listeners that are maybe have entered the business not 34 years ago, but maybe entered the business when it was a little bit busier than it is, and now they're seeing this kind of collapse. And you went through the same thing, coming in the business in '88, pretty decent market, and then the market starts to roll over in the '90s. I'm the same way. I entered the business in 1989. We have a very similar timeline in the industry. So I've been in 33 years, you're 34 years. So talk to me about how you went about, first of all, dealing mentally with the declining market, but also what did you do to get your business going? What was your secret to success?
I was too young in the business to really know I was in trouble. so really you do the basics. And I just was doing my goals for next year. And in my goals, it's getting back to the basics. And that is, and you hear it often, just showing up. Just the open houses and meeting people and telling people what you do. Mm-hmm. It's easy to get out of that, especially when you're in a super hot market where business just falls in your lap.
Yeah.
Same thing with taking listings. It used to be, or for the last at least 8 years, it was very easy to take a listing and sell it, multiple offers. Everything was, you were glorious. But but it's changed. So now you really have to think about how to sell listings and how to treat buyers and how to put your name out there and do the best job you can for your clients. So it's getting back to basics, and that's what I did back then. I did open houses ad nauseum. I did mailers. I never knocked doors. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
But but I did everything else just to tell everyone I knew what I was doing.
It's really interesting. I just was listening to another national speaker this morning, and he was on a podcast, and he brought up like the top 3 or 4 things to do in this market. And one of the number one things, back to basics, open houses. Just going out there. It's like your satellite office. You got to work somewhere. You might as well work in a spot where you can actually collect some business at the same time. So it's really interesting you brought that up. So talk to me about your approach to buyers today, because of course buyers are a little bit more nervous about the market than maybe they were a year ago. How's your conversations changing today?
I love working with buyers, always have. And in fact, we just closed on a house with some first-time buyers, 25, 26, saved a long time to get that down payment. Market's changing, very nervous. Is this the time to do it? And I explained that this is actually a good market, and there's still great deals out there. They're all over the place. You just have to know how to find them, or have a realtor that knows how to find them. So that's the conversation. Is that I just heard a thing, I think it was yesterday. It said, the quote was, "The best time to buy real estate was 5 years ago." And it's so true. I don't care where you look in history, the best time to buy real estate was 5 years ago. And it's very true right now. So yeah, the market's going to adjust. It's going to slow down. We're still in, for the most part, a seller's market.
Yeah.
So we haven't even hit equilibrium yet. We're still not at a normal market, but we're headed towards that. And that the fear that the market is changing is kind of takes hold of the market, and also the media. They sensationalize the changing market like it's doomsday,
right?
And it's not. We're headed toward normal right now, and it will adjust. The prices will adjust off the highs, but good properties over the next 5 years are still going to go up in value.
So a great quote, kind of like what you're saying about the best time to buy is 5 years ago, is you're not buying the market, you're only buying a specific home. I'm going to find you the best home. And that's kind of right along the lines of what you're saying, right?
That's it, exactly. And yet the conversation has to be with, especially with buyers now, is that they were so used to having to jump on every property that hit the market. So the inventory is going up. The number of new listings is going down. Inventory is going up. What that means is that there's a lot of junk that's not selling.
Yeah.
So they've been programmed over the last few years that anything on the market is worth taking a look at. So that's the adjustment for a realtor to try to explain to them is, no, that's not a good house. In a changing market, especially that's adjusting in price, you don't want to jump into something that is really not a good investment. So I really try to stress the investment side of what they're doing, even to they kick and scream. Well, what about that one? No, it backs to a busy road. What about that one? No, it's in one of the worst neighborhoods I can think of. So it's trying to adjust their mindset to what the market is, and the expectations is the biggest part.
I like that, because what you're doing is you're almost like a concierge. You're really giving them like this high level service and pointing them in the right direction against what they might think is their best direction, which is really
exactly. There was I guess I could say it, a couple that we were showing properties to. She kept sending me emails. I send the daily updates to them.
Sure.
And she kept asking about this property it's a street called Rutledge. And she kept sending it. And I kept saying, no, not a good property. And I would explain why I was thinking along those lines. And she kept sending it. So finally I took her out to see it. And this thing is a dog. I mean, and it had fleas. So this was just a terrible investment property, and it showed.
Sure.
So we saw that one. I said, that's why I didn't want to show it to you, but I showed it to you just so you knew where I was coming from. So from then on, every time she would call on a property that I didn't like, I'd say, that's a Rutledge.
That's a great example.
She got it.
I love it. Let me ask you this. So you've been in the business a long, long time. When you are looking back at your business, one of the things when I'm talking to experienced agents is And especially high level agents, is the number one place where they get their own business, and they seem to get it year after year, is their sphere of influence. Is that true for you as well?
Very,
Yeah.
very. And I look back at, and this is a seminar I went to 25 years ago. He talked about a tree, and your business is like, every single client is like a tree. If you treat the tree well, you water the tree, it grows roots, and all of a sudden it bears fruit. So and I can look at the majority of my business going back years, and every single successful tree, if you will, started with one person I met at an open house, or met it at a restaurant or wherever, and did a great job for them. They recommended other clients to me. They recommended other clients to me. And again, it bear fruit just by doing a fantastic job for them.
Yeah.
In fact, I just had one, if you don't mind me sharing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I had, I got a call from this person that I had no idea who they were. I thought it was spam at first, because it was out of the area code number.
Sure.
And she said, no, I was calling because I saw that I was representing a property in a really hot area, really strong seller's market, downtown Sacramento. And I got this house at least $100,000 under the asking price, which is, in that market, unheard of. It was
Crazy,
great.
yeah.
So she called me and said, how'd you do that? Just because she was following the market. She had been looking for 8 months.
Wow.
And she was following the market, and she said, how'd you do that? And I said, well, I'm really good. And she later told me that she thought I was very arrogant. But so she said, I'd like to work with you. And we did. And I found them just an amazing property in under a week.
Wow.
Under value. And we beat out competing builders that wanted to flip the property.
Wow.
So I did a really good job for them. Very happy. They've since, in the last 6 months, referred 3 people to us.
Wow.
So the tree.
That's really interesting, because I think that's something that your performance will lead to more production, right?
Absolutely.
And your, especially in this market where buyers are definitely tuned into performance. I think they're watching performance. I think it's really interesting. But sometimes agents have a hesitancy to like talk about their performance or show off their performance. But it's kind of like baseball; you got to show it off, right? You want to be picked up for the majors, you got to show it off. You got to show your stats.
That's right. They look at your average.
That's right. They look at your average.
I had no idea. She was just that in tune with. She wasn't successful for 8 months.
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
Right.
So and then from there. Yeah, again, just doing a great job for people pays off in the long run.
What are you doing specifically, like granularly, with your sphere? Are you doing a mailing to them every month? Are you doing a video? Are you making calls, sending Christmas cards? What are you doing on those fronts?
All the above. My wife is way better at that than I, but I do all of that. I do a lot of social media, and I found that for the most part, I don't like face. Am I allowed to say it?
No, you can say it. Yep.
Okay. I don't really love Facebook for what it does, for what it is. But the one thing it's good at is staying in contact and joining groups and being involved with people. And if you do it for that reason and just staying in contact and giving really good advice, same with LinkedIn, it's really effective. I get to hear from people that I probably wouldn't talk to for years. Almost every day I hear from them.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of that. And nice. I also we try to do a lot of calling. My wife talked me into the first time doing pot pies. Everybody knows what a pot pie is.
Yeah.
And I was anti pot pie for my entire life. And she talked me into doing them this year. And it turns out I love them.
Oh, that's great. Just a nice conversation.
People loved it. I loved it. So I try to be, I'm a little bit more personal. So I like to talk to them. I like to do stuff, things like that. Chris is way better at staying in contact via mail outs and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, are you guys doing client parties, anything like that? Those kinds of things?
Nope, not much of that. Again, one-on-one. I really enjoy one-on-one because I think I like the idea of parties, and I've thought about doing the movie theater idea and all the rest of that. But you're playing in that situation. I feel like I'm playing to a big audience. Yeah. I'm not talking to the person one-on-one, and that's my thing. I like to laugh and tell stories. And
I think there's a lot of power in
people are up to.
The networking of one-on-one with people is so powerful. That's where you get a lot of referral business. Now, when you're working with buyers and sellers, I'm curious, at this stage in your career, where you've been super successful, are you at a stage where you're coming in, are you still doing a full-on listing presentation, or is it more of a conversation with people? Are you doing a buyer presentation? How are you approaching new client relationships?
Yes, I am full-on everything. So in a listing presentation, in a buyer presentation, I'm prepared. So I know what they're looking for. I know exactly where to say, you haven't thought about these things. I know who they are. And I try to really, and that goes for everything I do, not only my clients, buyers and sellers, but putting in offers. I know everything about the agent that I'm dealing with the buyer's situation, with the house, how much they owe, everything. So that's the engineering side of me, is I research.
Yeah.
So when I sit down with a client, they're going to have questions, and I really want them to ask me the questions, because most of the times I have the answers. And so being that person that is the expert, that really has control of what they're talking about and what they're proposing to you, I think is really important.
The two things you said there, I think, are really important, though. The preparation versus the doing the actual work. And I heard somebody say at one time that 1 minute of preparation saves 4 minutes of execution, which I think is a really interesting way of looking at it. How much time? I mean, just let's put this in real words. How much time do you prepare for a seller meeting or a buyer meeting? Is it a couple hours, 2-3 hours to get ready for that, or how's that look to you?
No, it's usually a couple of days of really thinking about what they're doing, and also investigate. You can almost name a street in Sacramento. I can tell you what the type of construction is and what the houses look like. So depending on what they tell me they're looking for, I start to formulate ideas about, okay, what neighborhoods might they look at that they hadn't considered. Mm-hmm. And then I find out everything there is to know about that neighborhood, what the schools are, what the scores are in the school anecdotally. So school scores are great, but it's better to know anecdotally how the schools are. Mm-hmm. And I could give examples of that. There's some schools that score really well, but they're not very good schools. Yeah. So I really try to know everything, and where you go when you live there, what you like to do, what it's close to. And that goes back to knowing what they like to do.
Right.
So if you know that they like to ride horses, well, here's a great place to ride a horse. You can go up here, and here's a trail, and here's the and have a map ready for them of that. So I'm big on maps too. I love to show, visually what things are and what life is like wherever they're thinking about moving to. And same thing with sellers. I over prep on like crazy. So especially with them, because I know the numbers backwards and forwards. There's not an answer that I can't give. Usually.
I love it, because what you're doing with those buyers is you're selling a lifestyle. You're not just selling the 4 walls and a roof. You're selling the whole lifestyle that they're going to buy into. Brilliant.
Yeah, I am not a salesman. In fact, I'll tell you, I dislike going into a car dealer and somebody trying to pitch me and sell me. I'm like, really? This is what I do for a living.
Right.
But I don't like salesmen. So I don't really, and there's a really great coach out there, Daryl Davis, but he talks about, and I believe this, you're really a consultant. You want to teach them. You want to train them. You want them to be as good as you are at knowing that house is a good value. And I love doing it. And that's why I said I like working with buyers, because they know what they know. Excuse me. Yep. One of my favorite quotes of all times: they know what they know, they know what they don't know, and they don't know what they don't know. And it's really true.
That's so true.
So sometimes you're telling them things that they hadn't even thought of.
Right. Yeah.
And it's rewarding that they get when they get it.
Yeah. They have a little aha moment, and you're bringing it to them. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, you are an amazing. I want to work with you now. I want to come down there and buy a house from you.
Okay. Well, I'll sell it to you.
We're not too far away from each other too, but it's been my pleasure talking to you, and I wish you the absolute best of luck.